Well, as you all know, that the leveling of the bed is one of the most important steps before you start your 3D print, and as it was not in the manual how to do it quite extensively, and I had to make a call myself how to do it, I thought it would be maybe nice to have a small tutorial how to level a bed of a 3D builder. So the first thing you do is you put the platform 1 millimeter down, so you make sure your nozzle never hits the bed or scratches the bed. Then you bring it to the middle and to the back. You use both screws to go up and down, because in the beginning you want to make sure that the bed doesn't wobble. You will feel it like wobble a little, so you have to adjust all the screws so you stop the wobbling. Then in the back you screw up, up, up. You bring them down. You use your piece of paper to make sure you're good, and you put the nozzle about 1/10 of a millimeter above the bed. Then you bring it forward, again in the middle. You use both screws. And you bring it again to 1/10, and you bring it to the back again. You start left or right as you like. You bring it to the right height, and you bring it on the right side, and then you come to the front, and then you do the right, and you do the left. And then you bring it up always before moving up and down your nozzle. Well, I think it's wise to make sure the Z is off the bed, so raise it 1 millimeter, then you're never gonna scratch your bed. Well, that is the summary of how to level your bed.
The first thing you do is you go to, this is how it starts up. You press the button, you go to prepare, you rotate down, you go to move. The first thing you do is you move 1 millimeter and you put up the Z axis 1 millimeter, so you're sure it's not going to hit the platform. You also can do 2. And then you go back, you go to 10 millimeters. And then first I start with the X and move the X to the middle. Press the button again, and then you move the I also to the back. Then you go back. Oh, you go back to move axis. Oh, that's too far. If you press 2 times, it goes all the way back to the main menu. Move axis. You go back to the 1 millimeter. You go to the X. You bring it back 1. And when it's 1, you go back again, and you go back to the smallest steps because you don't want to hit the platform. You go again to the X, and you see it's 1 millimeter. Goes back to 9, and then you take your piece of paper, which is 1/10 of a millimeter, and you make sure you can go underneath the nozzle. And in the meantime, you step down. So you test. You step down, it's still not touching, it's going good. Okay, it's all the way down, it goes underneath quite easy. I have folded piece of paper, so if you go the other way underneath, you can test, it's not going underneath, so it's somewhere between 1/10 and 1/20 of a millimeter. So if you now want to raise it a little bit, then you use both screws at the same time. So you take the 2 back screws at the same time, and you rotate left, so it goes up, and you just a tiny bit. And you do this 2 screws at the same time, because if you get misaligned, the bed will wobble. So in the beginning you just check if it's not wobbling, and then you test again. Underneath. Okay. No, I went the wrong way. Now, now it's good. So test it. So the front is good. Now I'm going to move it to the front in the middle. you're going to move the X again up, so your short's not going to hit the bed. Okay, go back to the 10. And I bring it back to 20. Go back again. Now you go to the X, and then you step down in 1/10 of a millimeter again. You grab a piece of paper. And you want to make sure it slides underneath. And when you step down, you have a look. So now you feel a little bit of resistance, and then it's actually perfect. So you can, oh. Yeah. Well, it can just have a little bit. So both sides at the same time a little bit. And I test again. I think that's better. Yeah. So then you have aligned the middle. You check that it's not wobbly. And then go back again to the and move the Z X again 1 millimeter up. And then you move back in the menu to have the big steps again of 10 millimeters. And you should always start in the back. It's all the way at the maximum of the Y, and then I go to the about 10 on the X, yes. And then I go back to the small steps of the 0.1 for the X, and then I go down again. 3. Ah, that's already good, so I don't have to adjust that one. I bring it back up again to 1 millimeter before I move it again. And what actually is a good piece of advice, that sometimes when you're moving down, the X, it goes to 0, and it as you can hear, and sometimes it's no it doesn't, but sometimes it's on 0, but if you rotate it one more, it makes one more step down. So that's something to keep in mind, that you have to make sure that although it's called 0, there's sometimes an extra step. Yeah, back to 1 again. Big steps again. And then I move the X, I move them to 190. That's what I have, not all the way to the side, but just. And then I go back to the Z. Go back to the finest setting, and then you go down again. Slide it if you can put it underneath. Right. So it's good, but I should feel a little bit of resistance. So check the other side. Yeah, see, it's a little bit too low, so adjust a little bit. Test it again. Yeah, now it's good. You can feel a little bit of resistance, and the 0.2 doesn't go underneath. If you wait a while, it always jumps back to the main menu, so you have to go back again. Move X's, move 1 millimeter. Yeah, it's always wise to put the Z X up. You go to the big steps, and then remove the Y to the front, and I mostly bring it to 20. It's also, I think, just a little bit too high. Oh, just a little. Yeah, just feel that little bit of resistance. Now moving it across the X again to 10, and then I'm gonna level here. This is the last spot. Then I go again to the 0.1 and move the X down. And again, get a piece of paper. Again, this is, I think, too high. Yeah, put on a little more. So, okay. Well, and I finished the last corner. Then I bring it up a little bit. I always move the Z X up one before I start moving, and then you can go all the way to the home, and it puts it in the basic position, and now it's ready to start printing. And that's the end of the tutorial.